Alice, if you're there, can I have a task manager check for me, please?
Oh yeah.
Thank you. And when you're ready, if you can scroll down what we have, right? You close the slide.
you hear me? I can't say that. I can't hear it.
Wait, like... Okay. No, okay. Powerless as ever, aren't you?
Thanks for joining us.
Oh, hello. Hello. question, how do I make you powerful, by the way? You are a managing moderator, my friend. It says. I can remove you as managing moderator. Nice. Okay.
That's it for me.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to do a quick interview with Anish, I think. We're going to confirm the details, and then once that's done, we'll start the game. All the games will start automatically. They'll pop up while we there. All the games are even now. And if I need to go and just your block, they're 30 seconds. So just play all the games.
I had 40 minutes, right?
55 minutes.
But the opponents had how much? 10?
Yep.
Oh, why so much? And yeah, we had that's so much. And how much increment I have?
So it's 10 minutes plus 50 second increment, and we're gonna have 5 increments.
Because of the increment, I think is why I have more than 4 times the time.
Okay, it's up to you if you want to reduce it.
No, I don't want to reduce it.
Okay. So, that's what 10 minutes plus 50 minutes are gonna adjust maybe on it. Let's just play normally, and trust that, perhaps. Fair enough. I'm gonna make it for the next part.
Anish, Brian, you have you join live here. This is how we're going to get your camera and mic for podcast. Simon and I just looked at the link. You can join there. You're pretty familiar with that. Open Chrome. Allow your camera and microphone.
Okay, it's on email or?
It's in the chat.
Fine, sorry. Link, yeah, sometimes I have.
Yeah, either one's fine.
But we'll take the camera if it's already taken by stream, by the OBS.
How do you use it? Let me hop on there.
I mean, I can give you a different camera if you want.
Do you see it in the preview window on the top left?
No, I don't see that. I haven't seen the preview. Yeah, the integrated one is better.
Okay, I'm going to talk to you back to that.
Welcome, everybody, to the next edition of Kids versus Stars. Although today there's only one star in the sky, that is Super Grandmaster Anish Giri, Dutch #1. And he's thrown his hat into the ring. He's going to play against 4 super talents, 2 GMs and 2 IMs in the 19-year history of Chess.com. I don't think we've ever done anything like this, a clock simul. So let me introduce the man of the hour, Grandmaster Anish Giri. Anish, are you ready for this challenge today?
Yeah, thank you. It's great fun. I already, because I'm also streaming, so in my chat already people are demanding me to play my 3-year-old namesake, Anish, who is 3. That would be a proper kind of match, I think, for me facing the kids, because what I'm facing today is grown-up monsters. But nonetheless, I'm looking forward to that.
I think you've got 3 biological kids at home, but you've got 4 titled players today. What's a harder challenge, father of 3 or player of 4? Yeah,
we'll see. I mean, normally putting 3 kids to bed is my record, but I'll try to put now 7. Put all 7 of them down, so it's going to be a big challenge.
And I know people are waiting for the game to start, so I'm going to get you out here with one last question. When we were setting up this event, I asked you, is there any rating limit to the kids we invite? And you said no, invite whomever you want. Are you regretting that decision based on who we invited, or do you think that we invited just about the right rating?
Well, Mike, to be fair, whenever we had our correspondence, I would always be, either in an airport, about to board a plane, or I would be rushing to my next game during another tournament. So whatever question you asked, I more or less replied with, do whatever you want. And then we ended up with what we ended up with. So, no regrets, you could say so, yeah.
Okay, I guess I should have asked for my Christmas gift while you're on a plane. You would have agreed to anything.
Yes. I would have agreed to absolutely anything you would have asked. So you definitely missed out on a few opportunities there. Okay,
games are about to start. Anish, any final thoughts before we get going?
No, let's go. And I think people will enjoy the game. So let's get started.
Okay, great. Well, we're going to get Anish out of here. Let's take a very quick look at the format before we get going. But we've actually got all the players there ready. The format is this: 4 kids, clock simul. That means Anish's clock could be running on all 4 boards at the same time. That is the nature of the clock simul. The kids are not necessarily waiting for him to get to their board to make their move. No draw offers, and it's a team event. Essentially, Anish is his own team. The kids are a team. They're trying to get to 2.5 out of 4 to win the match. And we've given Anish more starting time, as is standard in clock simuls, 65 starting minutes for them. There's going to be a healthy 15-second bonus per move because, if he has all 4 games going, we got to give him some time there. So, all right, that's the format. Pretty simple. And we have got 4 excellent kids that they're going to play against. Those 4 kids are on camera right now. Let's take a look at their pictures. Some of them are very well known to the Chess Kid audience. Several of them are Chess Kid ambassadors. We've got the youngest ever British Grandmaster, Shreyas Royal, who was actually just at an in-person event with Anish like 2 days ago. So there might have been some funny banter there. We've got the 2024 American Cup champion, Alice Lee. We've got International Master Rio Chen, who won the very first 2 iterations of the Chess Kid Speed Chess Championship. We've also got the second youngest American Grandmaster of all time, Grandmaster Andy Woodward, whose play has been so good that Nakamura gave him some lessons, and I believe even sponsors some of his lessons. So if Nakamura is sponsoring you, you are the real deal. Those are the 4 kids. And they are ready to go. Andy's got the bookshelf behind him. Alice Lee is in her traditional chair. She's got the periodic table behind her. So it's not a fair play violation if she looks up the number of protons and boron. All right, I'm just saying. It's totally cool if that happens. Shreyas has got his gamer's chair. And Ryo, he's got the most excitement out of the bunch. You're going to see his face full-fledged on camera all the day today. So about 2 hours of chess. This is our 3rd edition of Kids versus Stars. And again, first time we're playing 1v4. I have no idea who's going to win. Twitter has no idea who's going to win. Anish might even be live tweeting on Twitter. He's actually streaming this as we go. So we're just about ready to start. We're going to give Anish white on all 4 boards. Okay, we got to give him that. Now, I do want to say a little bit here. Magnus played a simul at the Chess.com meetup against 8 people. 25 minutes, no time bonus, and no increment, and Magnus had to walk between boards. The only thing is, Magnus's highest rated opponent was 2,300. I think Anish's lowest rated is 2,400. Okay, so 2 GMs and 2 IMs. I don't know how this is going to go. And I'm going to tell you a little secret. I think Anish is a little worried. Okay, he's super competitive, and I think even he is not sure in his heart of hearts if he's the favorite. So I don't know what you guys think out there in Twitch-O-land and YouTube-O-land, who is the favorite. But go ahead and type it in the chat, because this is such a unique event that we literally don't know if we gave him the right rating of kids or whatever, right? We don't know if we give him too high, too low. This idea was born from my memory. Remember when Kasparov was beating everybody and his dog, and he needed a challenge when he was world champion in the early 90s? And he would play entire national teams. I think he played like the entire German national team, maybe he played the Israeli national team. Somebody check me on that. But he's like a guy who needed a challenge. He was like Tiger Woods, and he's like, I'm going to play the field without my driver, right? He kind of like had to handicap himself. So that's what we're doing here. We gave him a pretty big handicap. That it's a clock simul, right? So those 65 minutes, we'll see how that ends up being, if that ends up being the right time or not. But I want to see a situation where they all get low on time. The kids, Anish, he's got to go between the games. And here we go. We are off and running. Alice Lee has to face knight f3. And it looks like Ryo's game has begun. We've also got Andy Woodward's game that started. And yeah, they're all starting. We've got a Trumpowski. Now, remember, when Magnus played the World Championship right after Donald Trump was elected president, he played the Trumpowski. Is Anish doing the same thing? Because him and Magnus have this friendly Twitter sort of, frenemy situation. I don't know. Okay, that's all we're going to talk about politics today. All 4 games are running, and it looks like Anish has played basically different openings on all 4 boards. He's played a Trumpowski. He's played one knight f3. Maybe that's going to be a ready. We have a Grunfeld, and he's also played e4, e5. That would be against Shreyas. I don't really know why Shreyas is taking so long to respond to knight f3. But here we go. We are off and running. And again, Shreyas hung out with Anish. I think Anish actually played like a blindfold event at this private event that they were both at. I'm not even sure I'm allowed to name what the event is. So they hung out in person quite recently. And by the way, during our event today, we're going to pop in to the audio, and I'm going to bug Anish a little bit. I'm also going to bug the kids a little bit just to make it fair. So we're going to hear some real-time thoughts by Anish, and I'm not sure how much he's talking just yet. I bet he's going to talk less than you think he's going to talk because of the nature of this, because he's got 4 boards to play. I don't know in Anish's streaming history if he's ever played more than 1 game at a time, right? It doesn't happen very often. So that's what he's faced with today. If I make him play 4 games and I make him talk, then that's like a huge handicap, right? But maybe not for Anish, because I don't mean to be mean, but maybe talking is his best skill. So I don't know. He's 2730-ish now. He was once over 2800. When it comes to tweeting and talking over 3,000, in fact, we asked all 4 kids. Before the event if he's the best tweeter, and most of them agreed. Okay. By the way, once again, we do want you to tell us on Twitch and on YouTube that you can vote on who you think will win. I believe there's probably polls going on both of those. If you type in Anish W, if you think Anish will win, and type in Kids W if you think the kids will win. I'm totally curious to see what your votes are, because even I don't know. I mean, I literally set this up because it's 50-50 in my head. So now you can see by my shirt who I'm kind of rooting for. But anyway, by the way, there's only one person. We're going to get to the games in a second. There's only one person who says he might not be the best, funniest tweeter, and that's Alice Lee. She's sticking with her girl, Carissa Yip. They're both double medalists at the Olympiad. And Alice says, Carissa can give him a run for his money on funny. Run for his money on funny. Okay, let's get into the games. And in fact, it is a ready that Anish has played against Alice. I want to actually look at the clock times, and he's over his initial time on 3 of the 4 games. It's actually only the Alice game where he's dipped below his 65 minutes of starting. That's obviously nothing to do with the position. If you look, it's just a normal ready. But you can only get to so many games, right? If he was stuck looking at one game, you can just forget about one of your other games. So, of course, he's not going to forget for too long, but there you go. So, all right, so nothing much happening there. Let me check out the Ryo game. Now, Ryo has intentionally allowed his pawns to get doubled in this Trumpowski. I got to be honest with you, of all the ways to treat the Trumpowski, this is not one of the ones that I'm more familiar with. He could have gone for a knight e4 early line. If we can just go back to this moment in the Ryo game, let's see if we can sort of zoom in on Black's second move, because this is actually kind of a key moment in the Trumpowski. When bishop to g5 happens, what do we do? Now, there's a line where you play c5. There's a line where you just play d5. One of the main lines is to play e6, so when the knight does get captured, you don't cripple your pawns at all. You can take back with the queen. But the real fun begins if you play the move knight to e4. Okay, this is like the most exciting line. The bishop can actually go back either of these two directions, but if the bishop goes back here, Black sometimes plays c5 and gets the queen to b6, and that's hypercritical. And basically, Ryo has to sort of ask himself, Anish doesn't play the Trumpowski in real life, right? I don't think any top grandmaster does, except for Magnus at the World Championship. Would he really know all of these lines? And he went for a little bit more of a sedate system. But anyway, you know, that he's only got one game to play, so he's got to go with what he knows. Okay. All right. So anyway, instead we got this position, and he is doubling up his pawns to get the bishop pair. And the question is, can this dark squared bishop do anything amidst this mass of pawns in the dark squares? So kind of a nice idea by Anish. He gets rid of his dark squared bishop to cripple the pawns, but then he puts every last pawn he's got on the dark squares to blunt the power of Black's bishop. All right, very interesting stuff, and we're still very early on in that game. Okay, let me take a look at another game. So let me just figure out how we can get all the games. Sorry about that. I'm trying to tile the games the way that I want them tiled. And let me just get the games the way I want them looking. And I'm not sure how to go back, so we're going to have to figure that out because I've got the games a little bit tiled differently than I want. Okay. And sorry about that. We're just getting the games to look back the way that I want them to. And yes, no. Okay, we're going to get the games looking the way I want, but we have a potential queen trade in this game. And what is interesting is that Ryo, if we can just go back to his game really quick, Ryo's game, he's offering a queen trade. He's actually only got 7 minutes left. Now, he's one of the most impetuous chess players. I know this because I've hung out with him personally. He cannot sit still. He cannot stop talking. He plays very quickly. So he's already burned more than 3 minutes of his starting time. And that seems like kind of a lot, actually. I know he's got the 15-second bonus per move. So to use up like 30% of your time in the opening stages, it actually seems like kind of a lot. Now, it is his turn in this position. He can, of course, double Anish's pawns by trading queens, but that activates Anish's rook. I would probably leave the queen exactly where it is and continue my development. If the queens do trade and this pawn takes, you are going to have a small hole on this square. And notice this move c4. It's actually really interesting because now if queen takes queen and the pawn takes and the knight heads for that outpost, well, it can't get there anymore because of this move c4. Now the bishop and the rook are double teaming that square. So Ryo is saying, okay, if you trade queens, I can't attack the b5 square anymore, but what I can do is prevent your knight from getting there. So that's kind of the idea of this move c4. Okay, let's go back to the game and see where we're at after c4. I'd like to say that Anish is thinking, but honestly, I don't know if he's on this board, right? He could be looking at a board. He's totally focused, but I myself cannot tell exactly which board to look at. So let's go on to a different game. And let's pick, actually, what's really interesting is you've got a very similar position in the Alice Lee game. If we can get over to the Alice Lee game, there is the same positioning of the queens. And just like her compatriot, Ryo, Alice has also burned about 30% of her starting time, which I find kind of surprising because I kind of think they should treat the clock as a weapon. And right now, it's actually Anish making the clock a weapon. Okay, so Anish just castled, which meant he had the opportunity to trade queens, and he chose not to. But we're having a staring match, as we call it on Chess Kid, of the queens lining up on the B file. And the same question is being asked. Do the queens trade each other? Neither player has traded queens in this position, probably because after A takes B, the rooks activate. And a funny thing about rook pawns, when a rook pawn becomes anything else than a rook pawn, of course I realize that means a knight pawn, right? It can't jump to being a bishop pawn all in one turn. But a rook pawn is the only pawn that attacks only one square. And if it ever takes and becomes a knight pawn, or in this case, a B pawn, it attacks two squares. That may seem obvious, but it's actually the only pawn capture that can increase a pawn's value. So neither player is trading queens here. Although I do want to point out, unlike the Ryo game, okay, she took the pawn here, but if we go back one move, if she had taken and the pawn had taken, her knight actually does have access after knight A6 to the B4 square. Now, getting to B4 is not the end-all, be-all of chess, but it does represent a slight difference than in the first game. I think one of the reasons that this did not happen is because if the knight gets to B4, it's not actually doing anything. It's aiming at a bunch of hot air. Yeah, I can get to C2, but I'm not even sure exactly what that does. It might actually self-trap itself. For example, if white just plays some kind of regular move, let's give white this move, and the knight is on a one-man journey, and the rook moves to A4, and the knight gets to C2, well, it's looking pretty trapped after rook C1. Maybe there's some miracle save, but really, you're just behind enemy lines. We all love that Owen Wilson movie. No, we didn't. Nobody actually saw it. But the knight is just, he self-trapped himself. So that's not actually going to get the job done. All right, if we go back to the actual game, she did play pawn takes pawn. And I think in any normal circumstance, Anish would take back right away. But this is the nature of the clock simul. He's not on this game. I think it's pretty clear, or he would have just taken right away. Is there any world in which he plays queen takes queen? I don't think so, because if he plays queen takes queen and the pawn takes, he's not going to get this pawn back because pawn to b5 is going to happen. And correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I believe that is a Tetris piece. Boom, boom, boom. Could be wrong, probably am wrong, but it kind of looks like a Tetris piece. Okay, so he did take, and the bishop came to f5, and this is the live position. All right, so let's go back to the event and take a look at all four boards. And let's see where we are at. Okay, what we have not done is look at Shreyas's or Andy Woodward's game. And actually, I believe that there is a lot of action going on in the Andy Woodward game. So I'm going to see if I can pop into that game and we can get that one going. Taking a look at the screens here. And Andy Woodward's game is looking like it's the closest to finishing early. If I count the material, it actually looks like he might be up a pawn, if I'm not mistaken, although we have the dreaded opposite colored bishops. And I'm a little bit worried, actually, I'm a lot worried about Andy's dark squares in this position, because this bishop is, I would say, more active than black's bishop because it is aiming right through the heart of the black king. And that's what concerns me in this position. Yeah, there's an extra pawn, but yeah, your extra pawn's not going to mean anything if you get mated. And actually, Andy is one of the few players who's actually keeping up on the clock. He's got the most time of any of the four kids. And that might be a little bit better strategy. Now, Anish is not in danger at all on the clock right now. He's got almost an hour in all four of the games. So he's handling his clock, I would say, pretty well. And because of that, maybe we gave him too much time. I don't know. Viewers, do you think that 65 versus 10 was the right combo, keeping in mind that all sides are getting a 15-second bonus per move? You can definitely let me know. Yeah, some of the people on chat are saying Ryo is spinning in his chair. That is exactly how he is in person. This is not an act. Okay, whatever you're seeing on the screen here is completely how Ryo is. Remember, he won 2 Chess Kid Speed Chess Championships. So he knows what he's doing. He's the kind of student that if he was my student, I'd be like, no, you have to change your whole behavior. But now that I see this has been him for the 5 years that I've known him, I kind of know that I'm going to let him be. Okay. And he's actually a very delightful kid. He's just, he's got a lot of energy. That's all. I would say Andy, Shreyas, and Alice are the more prototypical kids, right? They're more, a little bit quieter, a little bit more focused. But anyway, whatever works, right? I can't argue with the results. Ryo's only 14 years old. He's an IM. And he actually likes boba tea, by the way. We asked all the players, what's their favorite dessert? I believe boba tea is caffeinated. It's tea, right? I know decaf tea exists, but I assume boba tea is totally caffeinated. And maybe he had one before the game today. Who knows? I'll just say that it's likely, right? It is totally likely. Okay, so we've not looked at all at one of the games, and I'm trying to think about which game we have not looked at yet. Believe that was the Shreyas game. Yeah, the Shreyas game. And Shreyas has got pretty good amount of time. He's only used up 43 of his initial seconds. And taking a look at the chessboard here, of course, no surprise, equal material in the game. Believe his knight has just captured something, captured a knight on d4. And again, this is a situation where Anish would just capture back insta in any online game, but he's probably focused on some other game. And by doing so, he's going to have to burn some time. This is the thing. It may look like we gave him a little bit more time to start out than we should have, but as the games go on, he's going to, at some point, get glued to one game. Think about this. If he's got 5-minute think on one game, he might lose 5 minutes on all 4 boards because he's obviously not making moves on those boards. So I know in these clock simuls, what initially looks like a lot of time at the beginning is going to quickly evaporate. I'll put it that way. Okay. The time is going to go away before he even knows it. This might be the quickest 2 hours of Anish's life. He's totally focused on the game and totally not talking right now. So if you're listening to his stream, you're probably getting a lot of dead air. This might be the quietest Anish has ever been. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but he may not want to wake up his kids. I think one of his kids is like less than 6 months old. So he may be staying quiet to keep, his wife's job a little bit easier. Who really knows? For those just joining us, this is Kids versus Stars. And it is actually 4 super talents. That's what it is. It's Anish versus 4 super talents. That's the part after the colon. So it's really just kid versus star. It's a clock simul. Anish is playing against 2 GMs and 2 IMs. And we picked his opponents. We gave him more time. And we're going to see if he can win at least 2.5 out of 4. And if he does so, he's the winner of the very first 1v4 Chess Kid event. Cool. So actually, one neat thing is we can actually tell which game Anish is on. Viewers, if you look at the screen, whoever's player profile name is highlighted, that's the game that Anish is currently making a move on. So you can see right now, he's on Shreyas' game, which curiously is actually the game that we're looking at on the screen. So Anish, thank you, because you didn't know what game that we were on, and I didn't know what game you were on, but somehow the stars were aligning, and that was a double entendre. Okay, knight went back to d7. We've got a whole video on Chess Kid called Backward Moves. We've got another video called Mysterious Moves. And basically, whenever your opponent makes a backward move, that's like light bulbs going off in my head. Now, Anish has already played f4, but let's take a deep dive into why f4 happened. So this knight went backward. And when it went backward, it's going to come forward again. Okay, it wasn't because he wanted to release the f-pawn. Remember, you're not allowed to move your f-pawn without my written permission. Okay, this knight was probably headed for one of these 2 squares, and Anish, I suppose, asserted to himself that he did not want the knight going to e5, so he simply took that idea away. He played the move f4. To be honest with you, to my eye, I'm not actually sure why knight e5 is that impressive of a move. So if we give white some random move, let's say, I don't know, white puts the queen off the back row, okay, and the knight, let's say it does come to e5. Now you play f4. Well, obviously doesn't want to go back, right? That doesn't accomplish anything. If it goes here, we hit you with f5. That is not going to work. So I suppose that the knight would go back to c6, and that's what Anish wanted to avoid. But I'm not that impressed with the knight being on c6. I'm not sure if I would take and double the pawns or if I would just retreat the bishop. But to my eye, the knight getting to c6 is not any sort of like big accomplishment. So this could be that f4 was played as a normal expansion move and not especially to take away the e5 square. Maybe the knight was actually headed here all along. After f4, the knight probably should come here. I don't think that white should ever take this. Even though you double pawns, you line up this rook with the queen, and you've already weakened a lot of dark squares around your king. I could even see a situation where if this happened, and I don't think Anish will do this, but I could see a situation where black sacks the pawn, just gets it out of the way to be able to get the bishop to c5 and go after the white king. It could happen. Now, the annoying thing for black is that the queen is way far away from getting to the king side, but maybe there's a sneaky little bishop takes h3 sacrifice coming up. Not exactly sure, but certainly possible. Okay, so if we go back to the game, after f4, we have c6, and we are awaiting to see where Anish is going to retreat that bishop. Remember, just a moment ago, it felt like to me Anish had the full 65 minutes already in this game. He's now burned 10 minutes, and I think that's going to be a theme on all 4 games. He's definitely going to be burning some time. All right, well, let's go back and take a look at all 4 kids at the same time to check out their posture, their demeanor. Oh, Anish he's preparing for life as a 45-year-old man like me. He's taken away all of his hair. Actually, no, the one thing I've still got going for me is my hair. Anish is 30 years old, and Anish stay 30 forever. It was a great decade for me. So he's now focusing, it looks like, on Alice Lee's game. Alice Lee should be known to our entire audience. A double medalist, maybe gold's in her future one day, a double medalist at the recent Chess Olympiad. And she was my partner for Team Chess Battle 2. I was not a good partner. We lost in the opening round. And it turns out me and Alice, we jibe in person, but our chess styles are totally different. We're going to move past that. And instead, Anish is burning some time on her game. So maybe we should actually jump in to her game. And we should take a look at exactly what he is thinking about in this game. All right, quick check. Obviously, his queen's in danger. Is he going to give up the bishop pair to keep his queen on c4? Well, if he doesn't give up the bishop pair by playing bishop takes d6, then the question is, what does he do? There's no retreat in this position. So onward, right? The queen's going to come forward. For some reason, this looks awkward to me, because if the queens trade, the bishop is on this square, and I don't know, it's loose, but I guess nothing bad happens to it. Black can develop with knight a6 with tempo, but it feels to me it's more natural to bring the queen forward to this square. Now, Alice is taking control of e4. Could be a small victory. The problem, I guess, is that he's worried about this diagonal. Okay, I think after a little bit of talking, I've isolated what his concern is. Let's take a look. If he doesn't play bishop takes knight, okay, if he just plays queen c5, and this queen takes, the pawn probably cannot take. Because if pawn takes, both knights are hanging, but then a rook is going to be hanging as well. So takes. It's still actually not so clear, because if you go rook grabbing, this pawn's going to take on e7, and there's going to be some serious counterplay. But I can't imagine in a simul actually wanting to do this. Takes, and then you take, and then the rook moves, and then you grab this bishop back. I don't know. I mean, maybe white actually has compensation, but very, very tricky thing to do. If we go back and play with a little bit more sanity, if we go back to the position where the queens traded, perhaps bishop takes is just simpler, but this diagonal still feels awkward. Simple move, knight d7, threatening knight takes bishop. And, if the pawn takes, remember the pawn's pinned. And if your bishop runs away, I'm not saying it's the best move, then maybe this pawn comes forward and puts some pressure on the pinned piece. Maybe it doesn't work just yet. Again, maybe there's a pawn takes line where you start sacking exchanges and things. But maybe black will just build up slowly on this pawn. How to do that, I'm not sure. You can't really play knight b5. Maybe black will just move the rook over and just play c5, just play it normally, no pawn sacks, nothing like that. But I don't know, it looks like black's getting good pressure, if I'm being honest, in this position. Let's go back to the game and see what's happened here. Still a big think, and you can see he's down to 50 minutes on this game. So big decision coming up, and I think we should. It looks like he's actually moved on, which is interesting because he didn't make a move in this game. He's moved on to Ryo's game. Ryo cannot sit still. If this is a competition to stay in frame on the camera, Ryo would have lost on move 2. Okay, but luckily we've got other things going on. We've got real chess going on. So he's looking at the Ryo game. Now at some point, I'm probably going to wait for the right moment, but at some point we're going to try to jump into the audio and we're going to bug Anish on the air. Okay, so wait for that because we want to make it like a real challenge, right? We want to see if he can be funny while playing 4 titled kids. I don't even know. We'll see. Whenever that happens, though, I'm ready with some more questions to bug Anish. But he's gone to Ryo's game, and if he's gone to Ryo's game, I think we should go to Ryo's game. Why not, right? ¿Por qué no? As my colleague Yvette Garcia says. So let me go back to the event here. I think I misclicked on something. Let's go back to the Ryo game. There we go. And we have ourselves a double exclam move. Now I know why he's lost all of his hair. I've seen this view from Anish before. I don't immediately know that it's panic. I think he just does this sometimes when he is in a deep think. Okay, so Hikaru looks at ceiling, and Anish, it looks like he's, I don't know, at a funeral, basically. Okay, so bishop to f5. Trying to divert the queen. Let's see where the bishop came from. Okay, it came from c8, and it went to f5. Double exclam move. And if the queen takes, the very obvious idea, we divert the queen away from the base pawn. Queen takes b2, and then white will lose the entire queen side. We'll lose the rook, might lose the pawn. c3 is weaker, and obviously the queen is not going to take the bishop. So Anish is, I don't know, is he considering between queen d2 and queen c1? Is it really that big of a decision? Maybe. Can you take and trap the queen? Oh, wait a minute. Is this one of those positions where you take, and I'm out of my book knowledge, and the queen takes, and then you let her take the rook, but then your queen comes back and she has trouble rescuing herself? Or maybe not. Maybe you just keep taking a bunch of pawns, right? Maybe you just take this one and you take that one, but then your knight is hanging, of course. So let's see. If you take, okay, and the queen keeps on taking, okay, and then you go back to guard your knight with tempo. Okay, so this is the idea. You get the bishop, you get the bonus d-pawn, and you have time to come back to the power of check, the power of Grayskull, and then the queen comes back, and then the queen is neither lost nor free. So she's like a 10-year treasury bond, okay? She might have value, but it's going to take a while for her to get value, okay? And I'm sorry to bring up treasury bonds, but, they're above 4.5%. They're a solid investment. Let's get back to chess, okay? Please consult your financial advisor. So the queen, will she get out of A1? I literally don't care. Oh, sorry, that's the other guy. I literally don't know. That'd be a better way to do it. So, all right. Well, let's see if we can get in touch with Anish at this critical moment. He seems to still be thinking about the Ryo game. And as such, I think he's going to be a little bit bugged by me jumping in at this moment during the deep think. But we'll see. We'll see. Okay? Let's see if I can get Anish on the airwaves here and ask what he's thinking in this position. Anish, Funmaster Mike is here. Looks like you had a big thought in that Ryo game. What are you thinking?
Yeah, no, I'm not sure if I should. They don't hear me, by the way, yeah?
Yeah, everybody can hear you, actually. The kids cannot. Yes, correct.
Okay, that's good. No, I'm not sure. I can take on f5, and it could be very good, could be not very good, and very, very hard to decide. Because I can basically take on b2. I think he wants to go knight e7 there. Probably I should go queen d5. Then he goes queen a1. I can go queen e4, bishop e7, queen c2. He probably should castle. I'll bring the knight out to g3 or to f4, I guess. Or to c1. Or to c1, by the way. He'll defend this one with b5. I'll bring the bishop out. Knight to c1, by the way, is maybe a thing, actually. Okay, he can go bishop a3 directly instead of castles. That's maybe more accurate. There I will I can bring the knights out. Yeah, and then we get this thing with queen b2 at some point. And then I think he might come out, but also maybe the bishop gets stuck. Then it's very complicated. I can also just move the queen, but it's of course not at all as principled as this whole line. I don't know. Because it will be quite stupid, of course, to take this risk in this situation, because I'm a big favorite to do well if I don't do anything strange as well. But at the same time, hard to resist from a move that looks like could be the best move.
I can understand the dilemma. Fascinating analysis. As you might guess, I can neither confirm nor deny the validity of any of it. Are you liking your clock management on all 4 boards so far?
No, the disaster. It's a disaster. The clock management is terrible.
Okay, well, I'll let you go on that because you have like a really interesting and critical moment that I know is burning some time on your clock.
I'm going to take on f5. Sorry, I'm going to take on f5, whatever.
Okay. All right, take on f5. Which game are you going to next?
Now I'm with Alice.
Okay. All right, well, we'll jump in later, probably at a less critical moment, but thanks for those quick thoughts, Anish.
Thank you.
Okay, I think everybody probably heard the seriousness of his voice. I'm not sure he's having fun in this event. Now, we are just playing for bragging rights. However, he really wants to win, as you might guess, right? And I think you could hear it in his voice. And I want to say I'm going to put Anish closer to my generation than the kids in these events. They're really putting themselves out there, right? He's a super GM. He's beaten Magnus twice. He won Tata Steel, one of the most storied events in the history of chess. And here he is playing 4 kids. He signed up for it. I mean, I didn't have to twist his arm. It wasn't like, he came to me with the idea. But when I came to him, he was game. Okay. And remember, he did not give us a rating limit. I want to be fair to Anish. I brought up Magnus earlier. Magnus played a simul at the Chess.com meetup. Magnus did have a soft rating limit, okay? I don't really know exactly what it was. But anyway, Anish had no rating limit. He's only playing 4 boards. He doesn't have to walk back and forth between his games. Anyway, it's a big difference, but I'm not saying it's all advantageous to Magnus. Anish has given himself a tougher challenge than Magnus in some respects. So he's now focusing on the Alice Lee game. He called his time management a total disaster, and some people in the chat, I saw you thought that maybe we gave Anish a little bit too much time, but now look at his clocks. He's got 40 minutes in that Ryo game. He burned so much time on that move. In this Alice Lee game, he's got 42. His clock, meanwhile, is ticking in the Shreyas game, and his clock is also ticking in the Andy Woodward game. Now, the eval bar does like his position in all 4 games, especially the Andy game. Andy's actually got a $1.41 remaining, but these are kids, 15-second bonus per move. They can move very quickly. So he would be well advised if he could wrap up one of these games really quickly. If he could wrap up the Andy Woodward game, that would be great to actually only get down to 3 games. However, the kids are competing as a unit. So they're not just going to resign in a position they might normally resign if it was a one-on-one classical game. Now, I'm not saying necessarily they're going to keep playing when they're down a queen, because I think they have a little bit of respect for Anish, but technically, they're allowed to. Technically, they are allowed to. So I'm a little bit worried about his time too, by the way. And he's still stuck on this decision with Alice. He still doesn't know whether to take the knight. Okay, he did take, and I've got a reason for that. Remember how we were focusing a lot on the weakness of the d pawn? Okay. When he makes Alice take back, e takes d6, the rook for Alice cannot occupy the d file and put more pressure on the pawn. So he's played actually the most solid idea. I don't think the computer likes it and thinks it's the best, but he's played the most solid, and maybe he feels like it's time to solidify the position, because if he has to start making critical decisions in, let's say, 2 or 3 out of the 4 games, his clock disaster, his words, not mine, is not going to get any better. And Alice was ready for this, by the way. She played d5 insta, which I love, because she knows the clock is a huge, huge weapon in this format. And she's put the action back on him. So he's actually moved back to the Ryo game, and the exact line that we looked at, and then he independently told us, I actually didn't want to tell him that we had independently looked at the same line, because that actually could be considered a little bit of help. So for those of you out there who are micro-analyzing, even former world champions, who are microanalyzing this event. We're trying to make it absolutely on the up and up. So Anish came up with that same line independent of me. He actually went further, and he noticed the bishop a3 idea, which would have freed his queen, but maybe trapped his bishop in the process. So, okay, he's moved on to the Andy Woodward game, and Andy's in the most trouble. This could be a key element of the game if he can get rid of this Andy Woodward game, if he can just wrap it up. So let's move over there, because there was this threat of possible dark square checkmates on g7. And if we go there, we're going to take a look and see what progress Anish has made to getting to g7. Okay, he's tucked his bishop away on a1, and the bishop is still slicing and dicing here through the entire heart of the board. And Andy is banking most of his defense on the f-pawn moving forward. And it looks like here, this is a critical move alert. That's why the arrow is turned blue. e5, critical move. I've changed it to orange, but I can change it back to blue. Actually, no, I can't change it back to blue. I'm going to keep it orange. And when the pawn comes up to the e5 square, it's going to break through f6, whether black takes or black pushes or black leaves it there. At some point, the pawn's going to take, the bishop is going to re-energize itself, and this king is going to get stuck in the crosshairs. So the challenge is how to stop it. I guess you could try for e5. Notice, though, if this rook ever gets to d1, there's a big problem on the bishop. You don't want your best piece in chess making defense on this bishop like here. So e5 was what black would want to do. So white plays e5 first. And there we go. He only gets a single exclam. But this is very, very smart of him to try to wrap up this game as quickly as possible. Okay, so if you're black and your goal is to not get mated on g7, what do you do? Can you guard the pawn? Okay, let's take a look at queen f5. So queen f5, keeping an eye on the bishop, helping safeguard this pawn, and also white's got to be a little careful because black's rooks are connected. So if white takes too early, then when the pawn takes, it's actually white's back rank that's weak, and now white has to start playing some defensive moves, and the queen, okay, not right away. The queen's going to come here eventually to repel this queen once this bishop gets defended. So if this rook moves, black takes care of the bishop, black starts to repel the white queen. That's kind of black's dream scenario, I would say, if black can get all of that accomplished. I'd actually love, let's see, Andy's only got 1 minute, so it feels a little bit evil for me to try to pop into Andy's audio in this particular position. Let's see, did he actually make a move after e5? Yes, he played rook on a to d8. Computer says, no way, that's not a good move. And let's figure out why. Okay, so rook over. Of course, my first thought is to capture. But again, after takes, the rooks are lined up. Okay. Okay, I want to play a hero move like rook takes. I want to disconnect the black rooks to be able to play pawn takes and have that pawn be pinned. But unfortunately, after takes, I believe the queen can take back, and then my whole idea falls apart. So that's not quite going to work. Now, is there any world in which you push this pawn? It seems so counterintuitive to put, oh, wait a minute. Okay, pushing the pawn deadens the bishop, kind of. We're going to get to that. But it exposes the rook. I think we have a tactics alert here. Is Anish on this game? No, he's on the Shreyas game. But when he gets back to this game, if he finds e6, which is totally counterintuitive, the idea is when the bishop moves. And by the way, the bishop can take, right? It looks like he hung a pawn, because if rook takes, we have checkmate on the back rank. However, the point of pushing the pawn is to get the bishop off of the 7th rank, whether it goes back to c8 or takes, and then he's going to play bishop takes, and now white is winning, black is toast. Checkmate on g7. If the pawn takes, it opens up the rook, so checkmate still happens on g7, and I think black can resign. So what does black do after e6? I think black just loses the bishop. Black's going to have to play just down a piece. Okay, he did avoid the checkmate for a long time, but that's a weird move to play because your whole hope was based on taking, and now you actually push, and the rook is the hero, not necessarily the bishop. The bishop gives itself up on f6. So fascinating stuff. Fascinating. He's actually back to this game. So he's trying to figure out, should he take? Should he push? Should he do something else? He has not found it yet. absolutely critical moment in this game. Will he find e6 or not? The computer didn't turn the move blue. By the way, he's got slower ways to build up. He could just play like h4, h5, something like that. That'd be totally plausible too. But e6, remember, it's not just that he needs to win this game. I think he needs to win the game quickly to put one game to bed. Then he only has 3 kids over the board. He'll have 3 kids sleeping in his house. It'll be 3-3, biological kids versus chess kids. And that's going to make his life a lot easier. We do have some results of your voting. Are you curious? I'm curious. It looks like 55% of you think that Anish will be the favorite today. Okay, will win 2.5 out of 4 games or more. And in fact, I think it's actually crept up. 58% of you think that Anish will win, maybe because of this game, maybe. But remember, his clock is kind of in danger in some of his other games. He's playing 2 14-year-olds, 2 15-year-olds, 2 IMs, 2 GMs, and it's looking very good on this board. Ryo has gone out of camera in the least surprising moment of the day. Okay, I want to take a look at all the games, and I want to check the clock time. So he's down to 35 minutes or so on 3 of the boards. The only board where he's got a larger amount of time, the 45 minutes, is on this Andy Woodward game. He has next to no advantage in the game against Alice. In fact, Alice has a small advantage. Totally equal in the Ryo game, and he's got a noticeable but smaller advantage in the Shreyas game as opposed to the Andy Woodward game. So he is back to Alice, and maybe if there's a chance, we can bug Alice a little bit. So it's only fair, right? We should bug the players a little bit. Now, he's just moved against Alice, so I'm not sure if she's going to want to talk to us right when it's her turn. But remember last time, she played Insta against him, last time we checked in with her. So let's see what the last move of the game was. So his rook has just moved to d1, kind of mysterious, putting his rook behind a pawn that can't move. I think I know why. I do, because I played a team event with Alice. He's trying to discourage pawn c5. I realize the d pawn's hanging. Please don't blow up in chat. But with this dark-squared bishop and him not having a dark-squared bishop, he wants to prevent such levers, or do you call it levers? So I don't know. When the pawn comes to c5, you can see the danger of the queen lined up. So the queen's come to b4. Those are kind of interesting move, but doesn't really prepare c5. And Alice has just moved. So let's see if we can jump in to Alice. We'll ask her about which element of the periodic table is her favorite. Just kidding. We're going to ask her about her game. So let's get Alice's audio live and see what she's thinking. International Master Alice Lee. It's Fun Master Mike. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. He burned a lot of time before bishop takes d6. What did you think he was going to take your knight, or do you think he was going to move his queen somewhere?
Yeah, honestly, I felt like after knight d6, I had a pretty good position. Because he has 3 options. He can do queen c5. I mean, if he doesn't take on d6, he has, I think, queen c5, queen b4, queen a4. I think if queen a4, I have knight b5, and there I might just be winning material because the d4 pawn's hanging, the knight on c3 is hanging. And if queen b4 and queen c5, I wasn't sure, honestly, what I was going to do, but I at least have the option of exchanging queens. Maybe it was queen takes c5 or queen takes b4, maybe it was knight a6. And I thought, like, there the endgame is okay. But yeah, like, I was surprised with bishop takes d6.
Yeah, well, I think I can't actually talk about the games because I can't give you any kind of help or anything, but let me ask you more broadly. Are you looking at the other games or just your own game?
I don't know how to look at the other games.
Okay,
But yeah,
we may have actually prevented it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about the clock management for both you and Anish? Are you happy with your clock? Are you happy about his clock?
I'm not sure. Like, I think, I mean, I don't know how the other games are going. So he could be just focusing on the other games before coming to my game. But so far, I'm like happy that I guess I haven't got down to like 2 minutes ahead there.
Okay, well, I can report all 4 games are still going. I don't want to give any more help than that. And lastly, did you prep at all for this?
No, I didn't. I didn't know what color I would be it before the game.
It's a simul. You get black. That's kind of standard. But okay, well, sounds like you're still pretty confident, though. Is that right?
I think my position is okay. Yeah.
Okay. Again, I can't really comment on it because we don't usually talk to players live on air. So I will just say you have a chess position, and it is against Anish Giri. And we'll just leave it at that. All right. Well, thanks for letting us jump in and bug you a little bit. I'm going to let you get back to your game, and good luck.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Bye, Alice. Okay, so she seems pretty confident. I have to play the role of the dumb reporter where I don't know anything. But in any case, she has reason to be confident. By the way, she cannot hear me now, just to let you know, I'm able to tell. And she's got this, she's got the bishop pair basically for free. That's what she's got. She's got the main lever of the position. It might take her a while to play c5, but I don't see e4 coming. So I don't really see what Anish is doing. I think Anish is going to have to play moves like rook c1, I don't know, knight a4 maybe, but he's got to keep on preventing this pawn move. Her biggest problem maybe is that the d pawn is a little bit awkward to defend. She may have moved her queen actually to put the knight there to defend the pawn to be able to play c5. I guess she has to be careful she doesn't trap her queen. So if she goes here, it's not her move. Let's give white a move. If she goes here, and we got a deep dive on the game. And I don't know, Anish would never play h3, but let's just say he does. And this pawn comes forward. She might end up like trapping her own queen. She's got to now go back here. And I don't know, something bad's going to happen to her. Is it happening right away? I think the viewers can see the kind of danger. The queen goes here. The bishop goes to f1. Something like this. And if there's a miracle way to save, maybe knight here's a miracle. Maybe you actually just use your rook. Maybe rook a1 was a thing. But there's no way she's going to bury her queen on a6 and allow this to happen. There's just no way. So, okay, so going back to the game, and looks like a3 did happen. The queen went to a more logical square, d6. Rook did come to c1. Bishop came to f8, okay, putting some pressure on a3. And the knight came to a4. Wait a minute. Is this a situation where Anish just didn't notice bishop f8 was double attacking the pawn? It's the kind of move that you would maybe miss in a simul, because the bishop went back. I mean, obviously, as a simul player, he has to ask himself, why is it my move again, right? What did Alice do? I think he just hung the pawn, because like any kind of normal move like pushing the pawn or even moving the rook back, you have to guard the pawn. So why did he go here? I think he just missed it. I mean, computer says double question mark, but I think it's the kind of thing that you miss in a simul. So a big tragedy for Anish, and she didn't mess around. Alice wasn't like, whoa, what is this 2700 up to? She took rather immediately, and Anish is a big problem. He's down a pawn, he's down the bishop pair. He has no real counterplay. The minority attack idea of b4, b5. When it's 1-on-3, it's not a minority attack, it's a kamikaze situation. So big trouble. Big trouble for Anish. He's moved over to the Andy Woodward game. And remember, that's the game where he had the possible tactic. It looks like he may have found it. Let's go over to the Andy Woodward game and let's see exactly what unfolded in this game, because remember, we're waiting to see if he could find the move e6. Let's see if Anish was practicing his puzzles. This is the last time we saw the game. And as you would expect of a player of his caliber, he finds e6. Andy, of course, cannot move the bishop. If in case you just jumped in, reminding you, if bishop takes, with tricks in the back rank, bishop takes f6, and GG, set him up, but don't play again, because it's just checkmate on g7. So if we go back to e6, Andy gives it the bishop because he basically had no other option. And after takes, the rook moves. See, why did he not take the pawn? Was there some? Oh, you know what? This is actually tragic comic, right? If comedy is tragedy with time, I believe rook takes. This would still happen. Bishop takes f6, and now the pawn is pinned this way. What an amazing constellation of pieces. If you look at the chessboard, all of white's 4 pieces are contributing to this. So Andy, sadly, had to move his rook over to f8. And now we are in our live position. Only 30 seconds left for Andy. It looks like he's actually shaking his head in the Alice Lee game. He may have actually rewound his previous moves just to look at, to rewatch the horror. So he's got Saw 1, Saw 2. He's replaying the whole horror series, I believe. And he just can't believe that he hung that pawn. He's actually talking for one of the first times that I've seen him. So I don't know what he's saying in the chat, but maybe it's possible that we could audio up him and just mute myself. And if we can do that, it would be actually very curious to hear what he's saying in that Alice Lee game. I'm not sure. I think we have that tech possible, but this is one of those times we should just listen in. Okay, I thought we were going to get his audio there. We'll see if we can get it because I'm really curious to hear what he's saying.
It's very close.
Okay, so I'm going to let Anish, as much as he wants to talk or not, we're going to see what he says about the games. Let's take it over to Anish.
A4 maybe, yeah. B5 is not there. E6. King C2 takes maybe. There are many ways. I think A4 is good. It's probably the cleanest move. I'm not sure. Hopefully. I like it. I think it's good. I'm just a bit worried that I'm blundering some tactic again, but I think it's fine. Yeah, this is a bit of a shame. Okay, so here it's over. H3, Rook D7, Rook E7. No. Be one way to blunder it. Wonderful. How do we end this game as fast as possible? Queen E3 maybe. The most clinical solution. I think it is most clinical. Yeah. Okay, so this one. I'm gonna keep them fluid. Don't have to do it, but I don't know. Bishop C4 also possible. Takes E5. Then Rook D4 is there. Can go E5, of course. FE, maybe even knight of 3 or something. Yeah, E5. I don't know, feels okay. Yeah, this is a shame. What can I say? Okay, what is... Yeah, here we have interesting options. One option is, by the way, not taking is maybe better not. King C2 takes. King takes, B5. Takes. Yes, but there was something I wanted, something smart. Yeah, it was takes. Takes, pawn takes, and Rook B8. That's not smart at all. King C2 takes. I could take here, right? Take with a knight. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, this is just a shame. This is just a shame. Just a shame. take the pawn.
Okay.
I think you have to put this game away here as fast as possible, of course. Queen e6 may be faster.
All right. Well, fascinating to hear uncensored Anish. And he revealed everything that I think we knew. He hung the pawn in the Alice game. He keeps calling it a shame, which it is. This knight c5 idea in the Shreyas game ended up happening. So he did double Shreyas's pawns. And also, he knows he has to get this game put to bed. He keeps saying we have to put the game away. And I think he's all too familiar with putting things to bed, right? Those 3 kids. So shout out to Sapiko for her help in this match. She'll never be on the screen, but the work she's doing behind the scenes is very much valued by her husband. He's trying to put this game away. He's up a piece. I would say this is, in the Andy Woodward game, bottom right on your screen. We don't have to necessarily jump in there, but I want to say that this is exactly within the normal realm of what you do in a clock team simul. Andy is down a little bit. Okay, he's down a lot in the 2,700 cents, but he's not down a queen or anything like that. He's got some mobile pawns. If he's able to collect the D pawn, he can push some pawns down the board. The bishop is deadened. What I'm trying to say is, I know the eval bar is like, come on, Anish is going to win. But the longer he prolongs the game, the more he helps his teammates, and that really is the name of this game. You're not just trying to play for yourself, just like sort of an Olympiad event, which at this point, Alice knows all too well about. You are trying to win this for your team. So Alice has the only position that's better. Ryo's in some danger. Shreyas is slightly worse. And Andy, he's just trying to help his teammates now. He's just trying to prolong this game for as long as he can. He avoided mate, but Anish did find the key tactic to win the bishop. And Anish will win this game. But look at that clock ticking down every second he thinks on this board. And by the way, he's on this board right now. You may be thinking, why is he spending so much time on the game where he's just absolutely the most easily winning? And it's because I've played a bunch of simuls in my life. Okay, I've played as much as like 30, 40 kids only because I taught summer camps and that's kind of what I had to do. But I know the compartmentalization of simuls. The more you can just take one thing off your plate. It's like, I don't know, are there any parents out there in the chat, right? You've got 7 things to do, and your partner says, hey, I'll go pick up that milk, right? First of all, milk is now $8. So, but secondly, it's just like, oh, cool, thank you. One less thing I have to do. That is exactly how playing simuls feels. Okay, bit of a strange decision for Andy to take and reopen that diagonal a little bit, but anyway, that's the big problem right now for Anish. So, does he have any chance to make any sort of comeback in the Alice game? I'm not sure. Let's actually go to the Shreyas game, and we have not bugged Shreyas yet. He's only got 2 minutes left, and if there's an opportunity where Anish is thinking, and it's not Shreyas's move, I really don't want to bug Shreyas at 2 minutes on his clock, but if we can hang out here for a bit. He did acquire the bishop pair, although for all intents and purposes, white is up a pawn, because these 4 pawns over here cannot make a passed pawn against these 3. They just can't. Okay, they're not in the right formation. These 3 pawns can make a passed pawn against these 2. So that's the first advantage for white. The second advantage is that the knight, of course, is on the outpost of all outposts. And the bishop that black has that white doesn't, the dark square bishop, is currently blocked by his own pawn. I did give this idea earlier to play c4 to just give the pawn to activate the bishop. I don't know that black will go for it, because remember, this bishop is the only piece that can actually get rid of that knight. In fact, if you were to just take me off the street and jump me into this game and had me guess the opening, I would actually say it's a Rio Lopez exchange. Because in the exchange, this is exactly the pawn formation that you get. And in fact, white often loses the bishop pair specifically to go to the endgame to use his kingside pawn majority against black. It was not a Rio Lopez, nor was it against Ryo. It was against Shreyas. But anyway, small advantage for white. I could see the queen coming to h5 here. And I think Anish will win, but that's only 2 games. He's got to figure out a way to get at least a draw in the Alice Lee game or the game against Ryo. And he is better against Ryo. So if this was not a clock simul, I would say, okay, he's going to win 3-1, 3.5 to 1/2. Not a problem at all. But in a clock simul, it might be a problem. Let's see if we can get Shreyas' thoughts on this game and see what he has to tell us about what he sees coming up in the future. Grandmaster Shreyas Royal, it's Funmaster Mike. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, I wanted to wait until it wasn't your move. What are your thoughts on your game?
I spent too much time, I think. And what doesn't help is that my mouse ran out of battery, actually. And okay, I quickly had to get it working again.
Okay, so you did not switch to the touchpad. You went to look for another battery.
No, because the thing is I'm on like a monitor, so like I have to kind of, it's a bit of a hassle, making moves like this directly from my laptop instead of using a mouse.
Okay, are you looking at just your game, or are you following all 4 games?
I don't think we're allowed to follow the other games. So I've been forced to follow my own game.
Okay, that might be a good thing. I will only tell you that all 4 games are still going on. So, and so you're not happy with your time management. What about Anish's time? Are you worried about his time at all?
No, I think he's been given plenty of time. I don't think. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, okay. I think I'm in a bit of. In terms of time, I think I'm a bit low on time. Otherwise, yeah, it is what it is.
Okay, last question, so I'll let you get back to your game. What did you and Anish talk about when you met at that private event a few days ago? Did you guys discuss this event at all?
No, it was probably the elephant in the room, but we did not discuss this event at all, even though we probably knew we were going to meet again here.
Okay, both playing it classy. That makes sense. Okay. All right. Anyway, I know you've only got 1:43 left. You've got some problems in your position, as you said, not me. I'm not saying anything about the game, but I'll let you go back to your game, Shreyas. Hopefully you get that mouse working, and thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Okay, now Shreyas used to do a Chess Kid show with me, and I just want to let you know, his personality is not coming out there because he knows he's in trouble in this game, and he wishes he had more time. So that's Shreyas 25 moves in personality, not normal Shreyas personality. He's a delightful kid, incredibly respectful, and very funny that he didn't talk about this game with Anish at all. In fact, I was checking Anish's Twitter, and Anish didn't tweet so much about this match, either because he's being respectful because he's playing kids, right? Or because he's not sure. He doesn't want to be so bombastic. Either way, I'm looking forward to his tweets after the match. We did ask all 4 players who they thought the best tweeterer is, the best Xer. Most of them said Anish. I did mention before that Alice Lee thinks that Carissa's pretty funny. But Ryo says he particularly likes it when Anish roasts Magnus on Twitter. So Magnus, if you're watching, if you could roast Anish real quick in a tweet, we would show it on screen. My production crew would scramble. Okay. I don't think you're watching Magnus, but if you are, we'd love to see some roasting here. All right. What about the games? I am going to take a look at those clock times. We've got all 4 players on screen, and Anish has dipped below 20 minutes in that game with Alice. I wonder if he would ever consider a scenario where he's so lost against Alice that he just resigns the game to put that baby to bed. I mean, I know he's not, okay? And actually, I don't think his position is so hopeless that he would actually do that. But if he drops another pawn or two, I wonder, right? It's actually like an actual thought, because the more time you burn on that game, it being a clock simul, it could cost you in some of those other games. So right now, he is focusing on this game that we've got on the screen. Let's look at some real chess. So I mentioned queen h5. And now, how will black stop queen takes h7? Well, I don't think there's any world in which black will play h6 and allow the queen to sneak in, because now she's getting to h7, and this king is going to be living in exile. He doesn't get to stay in his home anymore. That's not going to work. So I think we're pretty limited here. I think it's got to be g6. And the only reason that black is not getting mated is because the queen plays a part in the defense of the king side. So, well, you know, it's my mouse, it's my show. We're allowed to look at any sacrifice we feel like, but I think this is not going to go very far at all, because after takes, queen takes, if this queen simply blocks, I don't see any follow-up. Unlike the game against Andy Woodward, where all of the pieces were flowing perfectly and there was some fancy rook sack that comes up. Yeah, none of that is happening in this position. So if we get g6, the queen is just going to have to run away. And in the absence of a dark squared bishop, maybe white realizes there's not a lot to gain. Now, what you really want to do is move your queen somewhere, maybe this square, and then try for f5. But of course, your knight would be hanging. So that's probably what he's dealing with in this game. Let's see if he's made a move. And he has not. This is back to the live position. Eval bar still likes him by about a pawn and a half, but he's got to prove it. Remember, he could just play slowly because in any endgame, essentially he has an extra pawn, the 3-on-2 advantage on the king side. So will he press the middle game? Will he go for an endgame? I'm not exactly sure, but he's staying on this game. And that's important because that means his clock is likely ticking on all the other games. His clock is definitely ticking in the Andy game. Andy's got less than a minute. His clock is ticking, well, in this game, obviously. He's also got his clock ticking in the Ryo game and in the Alice game. This, you were asking about what to clip and ship. Clip and ship this. His clock is ticking on all 4 boards. This is the nightmare scenario for any simul giver. All your games are going, you don't know what to do in any of the games. You've got a really complicated position in one game. And the only good news is that he's probably so focused on this game that he's not looking at his clock in the other games. Intrinsically, he probably understands and feels that it's probably his move on all 4 games. But in any case, the horror show is that if this happens and his clock dips below, let's say 10 minutes on all 4 games, he's got a real problem on his hands. So Alice doing well. She was already in a good position, I want to say. Remember when Anish hung the pawn on a3. Okay, she already had the bishop pair. She had the more pleasant position. And queen h5 did happen. g6 did happen. So we predicted that. I don't know if the queen's going to go to g5 or h6. I think the plan is to play f5. Neither of those moves really guard the knight when you want to play for f5. By the way, we did not look at the bishop sack, but I think it's the same thing. Bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes, and we'll show that on the screen here. I got the bishop. The bishop's waiting. This bishop is hungry for some breakfast. Bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes, and we saw this exact position with the knight missing and with a bishop on d3. Can our producers draw a magic bishop on d3? Have we been given the ability as hosts to draw on the screen? I'm just going to take out my special Apple drawing pen. No, we haven't. Okay, but it doesn't matter if it's knight on e5 or a bishop on d3. The piece sack does not work in this position. So we are waiting to see where this queen will find safe harbor. Will it be g5? Will it be h6? And he chose g5. That actually may be one of those positions that you should not labor on. That might be one of those positions where you should just move because they're so similar. Okay. Computer says, I don't like it. I don't know. I actually don't see much of a difference between h6 and g5. So there's some imperceptible computer difference between these moves. One nice thing about the queen being here is, you can play for h5. Oh, computer has thrown a blue arrow on the screen. We have a blue light special. And by the way, the last Kmart in USA just closed last month. So for any Americans there that are around my age, Kmart has gone the way of Blockbuster Video. Okay, let's get back to our blue light special. Bishop takes g6 is now a thing. And why? Because the bishop is not guarded. That is the key idea. Pawn takes, queen takes, and now when your queen blocks, white recovers the piece and gets checkmated. So that's not it, okay? That's called actually a commentary mistake that I slightly disguised as a instructional moment. So that's not the reason. So bishop takes, pawn takes. You just play knight takes? And there's some sort of like big pressure on the king? You just play knight takes. I don't get it. I don't understand. I guess you could sack the rook to get rid of the checkmate on g2, then take? And if the queen blocks, then you play the exchange down position? Maybe is Jess, maybe is Joe? I don't know. Of course, in this position, I don't even know that black has to block. Black doesn't want to go this way, knight f7, is probably winning. I say probably, but after takes, it's 2 rooks and a bishop for the queen. But you know what? My king will move here. Wherever you save your rook, I will play queen check, win your bishop, and I'll have 3 pawns against 0, and the emperor has no close, and I'm guessing that that's winning for white. What a mess. Now the king can go the other way. That's actually the problem. What does white have here besides going for perpetual check? Maybe nothing. Maybe it's just a draw. Okay, so for some reason, bishop takes g6 is a blue light special. However, I can't find anything better than a draw ski after bishop takes g6. So let's see if a move has been made. A move has not been made. This is just more nightmare for Anish. He's having to reanalyze. He's not just having to look at bishop takes g6. He doesn't know that's a blue light special. He's got to look at knight takes g6 as well. And he's down to 16 minutes. That's kind of a problem. Okay, let's go back to bishop takes, pawn takes. Let's see if we can put on our collective 4,700 people's thinking caps to figure out why on earth the computer thinks this is winning. Okay, let's look at knight takes. Idea, move the knight anywhere and do bad things to the king. Very simple idea. However, if you're black, I think you just block. And what is white doing? Is there another sack? Maybe you have to trade rooks first or something. I don't see it. Now, this is some crazy idea where you play like f5, f6 and the computer is helpless. Then I'm also helpless because, yeah, that's beyond my event horizon to analyze. All right, what else? What else? So takes. So this bishop is the problem. Do we have time to kick the bishop and not sack the bishop? Computer says, very wise, Danielson. Okay, this is the problem. The bishop has nowhere to go. The bishop needs to stay in contact with the g2 pawn. So after queen takes g6, queen g7, there'll be a mate threat, but the bishop can't stay in touch with the pawn. And if it goes backward, okay, but there's a new problem. The bishop can go back to this square and defend this pawn. Ah, but now the rook is in contact with the bishop. So now you probably just take. And if bishop takes, then queen takes, and this guy is going to be hanging, right? So takes. So what if black throws in rook takes rook, and then rook takes, and then black attempts to take, because I assume any knight move is just death to the king. So takes. You can't block with the queen because if you don't have your bishop, you're just getting attacked for nothing. But I think the king is a little bit too open. So if the king runs, where do you want to put him? No idea. King runs there. The rook comes up and over, and I'm assuming black cannot survive. And if the king runs this way, rook somewhere, right? Rook in the game, anywhere, Bueller. I have no idea where to put the rook. Somehow the rook gets in the game. Do we play f5? Idea rook e4, rook h4? Do we have time for that? Do we play rook here? Rook here, bishop takes, queen, queen somewhere. Queen check here. Queen check there, so you can't block with your queen. Can we just stop here and say white wins somehow, please? It's like a 3,600 level puzzle on Chess.com. I don't know. Okay, I think some moves have been made in the game. Queen g5, rook e8. He did not play the blue light special, but he played a very normal move, h4. Computer is like, but you know what? And a clock simul, this keeps the pressure up without making a critical decision. This is actually a good lesson for everybody out there. When you have a better position, and he knows he's got a better position, why risk it with a sacrifice you're not sure about when you can continue the pressure? In fact, if I'm being honest, I have a Chessable course that I'm going to record one day called What to Do When You're Losing, but this is going to be called What to Do When You're Winning. H4 continues the pressure, doesn't spoil anything, doesn't require any calculation, right? That's actually a more logical move. I know people that have, married the eval bar. You've gotten down on one knee and you've proposed to the eval bar. This move does not make sense, but I'm telling you, this is still a very good girlfriend. She's coming to h5 and black's king is still in big trouble. Okay, so bishop takes, pawn takes, Queen e7. Shreyas is picking up the pressure. And I think Shreyas realizes that at some point in this game, that 14 minutes are going to get even lower, and his clock may be his only friend. What he's doing in this game is he's going to try to blockade the extra pawn. This game is taking on a completely different makeup. There's not going to be any more checkmates. Shreyas is getting the queens off the dance floor, and he's just going to try to play a pawn down, but set up a blockade on the pawn. Okay, we spent a lot of time on this game. I don't even know what's going on in that Andy Woodward game. Andy's down to like 15 seconds, okay? He's still completely losing, no surprise there. Ryo is still worse. Alice is still better. But look at the clock times. Look at the clock times. Alice has almost as much time as Anish, 5 minutes to his 10 minutes. Anish is down to 13 minutes in the Ryo game, 13 minutes in the Shreyas game, 16 minutes in the Andy Woodward game. The concern on his face is palpable. Can concern be palpable? I don't know. It's evident. It's obvious. He stopped talking. Okay, he's actually mumbling something here. So if you're listening to his stream, you're getting a little bit of Anish insight. And you know what? Because he's talking, I think we should let the 2700 talk. What do you guys think? It's like me plus 400 points, plus add a few languages, plus add 3 kids. See, we're the same person, just a little bit different. So because he's talking in such critical moments, I'd actually love to hear what he's saying. So he might go mute on us, but we'll see. So we're going to try to go back to Anish mode on the screen, which is it's why we came, right? We want to hear the banter. So, okay, we have engaged Anish mode. I've pushed it. Here it is. Anish mode is engaged. Okay, take it away, Anish.
Hi. E6. Bishop takes. Bishop c4. Queen f6. Rook d6. Also queen f6 maybe. Yeah, also queen f6. Let's play fast. Bishop b4. Bishop takes b4. This. Yeah, this is better. Okay. What was my plan? I had check. Rook b8, rook b6 was one plan. Was an idea. I don't know if it's a plan, it's an idea. Rook a5, knight c6 ahead. Yeah, let's do it. Bishop c7, okay. Let's go b5. Why not? Why not? Rook d6, let's go. Takes queen f6. Maybe. Well, anyway, what else to do? Yeah, rook b6, rook a5, knight c6. Rook takes c6. Wait, I blundered everything or not? Can I still get something out of this? Yeah, I blundered a lot. Oh, that's a huge blunder. That's a huge blunder. Oh no, that's a huge blunder. Okay, so how do we salvage this one? 94. I'm still probably completely winning, but much less than before. I'm not completely maybe anymore. Knight b7. Rook c3, rook knight b7 is very tricky. Could work, but very tricky. and b7 to go to d8, but rook c3, king e4. Maybe it's worth a gamble at this point. Rook d7, rook c3, king d2, rook a3, knight d8, rook a2. Wow, it's a long way to go now. Very long way to go. Yeah, I've got this rook b6 knight e4 idea, but it's so much worse than what I had. Just blunder the pawn. Maybe I have still some way. Knight e8, rook c8. So how else to protect the knight? Yeah, knight b7 maybe, I don't know, knight b7. But even rook d5. No, it's not, doesn't feel right. Maybe I've gone knight e4. Okay, maybe go rook b6 to try and still takes, and then knight e4. Yeah, I'm ruining this, by the way, this simul completely. Okay, at least I put one guy to bed. Okay, this is blundering this. Wait, is this already blunder? Oh no, I can take here. Well, blunder time. Blunder time. Yeah, I have to now do this. No, what else? Yeah, no, this is a miss. So now I have to go knight somewhere. Knight e4 maybe. Yeah, queen takes. Go rook d1 as well. Take. Yeah, I don't know how much I have ruined this one. I should still be better. I'm just making random moves here. Knight f6, I hope. Rook a3. I'm just gonna go with the flow at this point. See where the flow takes me. I have to soon really accelerate, by the way. So how do I do it here? Hard to say. How to treat this position.
Well, fascinating there. You can hear that Anish is not happy with his play. He thinks that he's messing things up. He said, I'm ruining the simul completely. But we tuned in at a very inopportune moment because his wife Salpiko was in the room. He was saying hi. We heard a crying baby. So we made a joke at the beginning of this match. He wasn't playing 4 kids. He was playing Zafin. And it's true. It's Zafin kids, 7 kids that he's playing. I don't know why I love that number in Dutch, but I do. And it's come to bear in this match. So 3 kids at home, 4 on the board. His clock is below 10 minutes on all 4 games. Knights are a mess in Blitz, even though he's the owner of the Knights in this game against Ryo. They're hopping all around the board, and they're actually having trouble guarding each other. Could we see a 2 knights versus pawn endgame? Would that be something in a clock simul? But very dangerous times here for Anish because he cannot put Andy Woodward to bed, as he said. He also can't seem to put his own kids to bed. Not that it's his responsibility in these next 2 hours, but all kinds of problems, all kinds of shenanigans. And I can tell you, if I had a crying baby while I was trying to do my broadcast, it would not go well. Okay, my personal life aside, that's not really what I signed up for. So, but anyway, he signed up for the simul, and I don't think he has much of an advantage at all remaining in his game against Shreyas. His game against Ryo is a mess. He's still beating Andy, but he can't put it to bed. And Alice, it's just gone from bad to worse. So he's going to have to hop around between games. So I'm just going to jump to the Alice Lee game because we haven't seen it in a while. And I'm not going to go back, but he did actually have to sacrifice a piece in this game, and he has almost no compensation for it. So he's got 2 pawns, but the E pawn is totally stuck. The B pawn is totally stuck. And once the rooks start leaving the chessboard, it's just going to be an extra piece for Alice. So I will go back on what I said 20 minutes ago. I think he should resign this game. I think he should try to win this match 3-1 or 2.5 to 1/2. But continuing to play out this game, I don't think it's going to work out well. And for the first time in any of the 4 boards, we're about to be able to say that he's not even ahead on the clock in a game, because it's basically 5 minutes to 5 minutes here, and it's not going to get better, right? He's got 4 games to play. Alice is going to be able to play faster, focusing on only this one game. And I was about to say he's officially lower on time. Then, of course, he made a move. But in any case, I think he should resign. Chat, do you agree? Do you think he should resign this game? Or do you think he's trying to win this match 4-0 and not trying to win a majority of the games, as is the stated goal? Because remember, there's a goal and there's a posterity goal. And I wonder if he's going for 3.5 or 4. So, chat, let me know. Do you think he should resign this game? He can't hear you. He's not reading the chat, but let us know anyway. And we did have something happen. I don't know what, but something happened in the game against Shreyas to throw away the advantage. And I'm kind of curious why on earth his advantage has gone away. So this is the last time we saw the game, was this position. Anish keeps the queens on the board, still hoping for some sort of kingside attack. The extra pawn on the E file, still blockaded. Bishop F5, just ruining the pawn structure, right? He could trade rooks, trade bishops, make the G pawn become an F pawn, and further weaken the black kingside. He did trade. Things are going great. Okay, black throws in a check. White is still for choice here. What did he do? He played queen G5. Oh, he probably thought that he could just take this pawn, but he can't, because queen takes pawn. Queen takes H4, and the rook is lost. And you can't even get a draw with queen F6, queen F8, because the rook's going to be taken with check. So he missed this move, the kind of move that's very easy to miss in a simul, queen to D4. And yeah, now there's counterplay. Now white has to worry about all kinds of things. Queen F6, rook blocks, and we are in the live position. He still can't take because H4 is still a big, big problem. So no more advantage at all anymore in this game. Super important, because if he wins the game against Andy and he wins the game against Ryo, he's got to come up with a half point somewhere. I wonder if he'll bail out here. Again, I think he might still be trying to win 4-0, but he has 2 opportunities here to make his life easier. He can resign the Alice game. He can make a draw against Shreyas by playing queen F8, queen F6, and then he can say, all right, I've got a big advantage against Andy. I'm going to win that game, right? He's got 5 minutes to 1 minute as well. He's got a big time advantage in the Ryo game, 5 minutes to 40 seconds. So if he's looking at the, if he was able to call a match timeout, if we gave him a timeout, he might step back. He might consult with Sapiko. Not allowed to do that. That's a joke. And he might realize that is his best strategy. The weird thing about that strategy is that you actually have to go down 1-0 to do that strategy, right? Because he hasn't won any games yet. So it's a little bit weird to actually go behind on the scoreboard as a means of trying to win a match. And yeah, he's not going to do it, because I think if he was going to do it, he would have resigned it by now, if I'm being honest. So, all right, he's looking at the Ryo game, and nights are fun. Let's hop around, okay? Let's go to the Kentucky Derby, the Ryo game, and see where these knights are going to hop around. He's got pawns all on one side of the board. That's good for the knights. Collecting that A pawn, I think, was very, very useful. Now he doesn't have to worry about the pawn marching down the chessboard. This knight has almost self-trapped himself. That may have been what Ryo was banking on. Again, don't sleep on the possibility of lots of pawns leaving the board and Ryo like sacking a rook for the final pawn and having a 2 knights sort of endgame, 2 knights versus nothing, 2 knights versus pawn. Most of you know. Okay, and we do have an official draw. He did say that, patience is the better part of valor. No, modesty. I'm getting the quote wrong, but the point is rook up, rook back, queen back. He did take the perpetual check, the repetition. It's a draw. And I think from a match perspective, that was really smart. He was looking at all of his games, looking at the time. He said, I got to put some puppy to bed, and I'm putting this one to bed. So now he's got the same number of biological kids in his house as there are kids on his screen. It's 3-3. He's hoping to reduce one of those numbers, and I can tell you which one it is. He's trying. He loves his kids. He doesn't love these chess kids on his screen so much. He wants to get rid of them. But he has a draw. He's got 2 favorable positions and 1 very unfavorable position. And that knight endgame, that's going to be the killer. And we'll go back to it. The knight is trying to escape in the Ryo game. It has gone to h7, as you can see on your screen up there. And it's trying to get back out to g5. But while we're focusing on one pony, this other pony is running around the board. And, Ryo's only got 50 seconds. He has to constantly worry about getting forked by these knights. But if knight back to d4 happens, white's not exactly making any progress. But you know what? A bunch of extra moves, gaining some time on the increment while you put Andy Woodward, your I don't know what you call it, your adopted baby, your surrogate baby? No, not a baby, a teenager. 2 14-year-olds, 2 15-year-olds in this match, but he wants to put Andy to bed. And if Andy goes to bed, he will not get his favorite dessert, which is brownies. 2 of these kids like ice cream the most. Andy likes brownies, we've already said. That Ryo likes boba tea. Okay, the king has run over to c7. This knight now absolutely has to move, unless you're going to play more checks, but that's just kind of crazy. But you know what? It's not terrible. Knight check, king goes back. So knight check, king goes back. You give check again. You're just doing this to gain time on the clock. It doesn't actually improve your position, as you can very well know. Okay, so we are live in this position. And what is white going to do? What is Anish going to do? Okay, while we're looking, I wonder what the clock situation is. Knight to d4 did happen. So yeah, he's just kind of moving his knights around. A couple of things happen. Number 1, your opponent might blunder, right? Very easy to walk into a fork. And number 2, you're gaining these 15 seconds on the clock. So it's not the worst idea in the world to just move these knights all around the chessboard and to just see what happens. This is the live position. Ryo is creeping up a little bit on time. Let's take a look at a bird's eye view of all games still in progress. There are 3 games in progress, and I wanted to take a look at the clock times. Anish is down to 2 minutes. Alice still has 5. Anish losing on the clock, losing on the board in that game. He's creeping down close to Ryo's time, 3 minutes to 1 minute. And he officially has put Andy to bed. Big news, because that makes his job half, or I should say twice as easy as when the match started. He only has 2 kids left. He's got a 1.5 on the scoreboard. And let's just very quickly, very, very quickly see the final position in the Andy Woodward game, because I know things are ticking down very, very quickly. And actually, look at this. Andy was the super teammate and played it all the way to checkmate. We had a checkmate on the board. And so Andy, in a clock simul, you're allowed to do that, right? You're allowed to play all the way to mate to help your teammates out. There's a checkmate on the board. Everybody loves a good checkmate, just like a slam dunk. It's on the board. We say goodbye to Andy, and we thank him for playing. So the 2 GMs are done. Now it all rests on the shoulders of the IMs. And the 2 IMs are getting close to being equal on time. Alice still winning. Ryo needs to pull off a draw to help his team, because otherwise, if he goes down in his game, then all hope is lost for the kids. Then Anish will win this match 2.5 to 1/2, assuming Alice is able to finish off her game. This is where Anish could very well just resign the Alice Lee game. I know I keep saying that, but that would probably help his match situation. So it doesn't feel good, I know, as a former 2800 to lose to a 2400, But, Alice has been a part-time number one female player in the U.S. Her and Irina keep sort of, seesawing. Here, I'm here. You're here. No, I'm here. You're here. I'm here. They've been seesawing for about 2 years, but, no shame in losing to any of these players. I think I've lost to all of these players. I'm sure of it at some point. Okay, the knights continue to dance around the board. Rook b2. Don't take too much stock in the question mark there. Again, I think he's just kind of moving around, trying to gain some time on the clock and seeing if black will stumble into a knight fork. We are nowhere close to the 50 move rule. It should be noted here that if you're white, this is a good rule to know. You should try to keep one set of rooks on the board. You should not trade rooks. First of all, if you trade rooks, the enemy rook will be able to run around the board unfettered. And number two, the more rooks you leave on the board, the more chances of knight forks. So, long story short, whenever you're down the exchange or in this position where you've got two minors for the rook, you generally should try to keep your rooks on the chessboard. And that's pretty much what he's doing. But he has to make progress somehow. I guess f7 is the weak point. But if you ever play rook b7, then one of the black rooks will just block. You're not going to get to f7 that easily. Black's position is very solid. It's very compact. Like, what is the weakness if it's not f7? If you don't fork the king and the rook, and you don't cash in on f7, then, what's the weakness? Sorry, what's the clearance? Clarence? Was that from Airplane? Somebody check that for me. Something my dad said. You've reached a different point in life when you start saying things that your dad said. Also, hello to Richie if you're watching. Okay, rook to c2. More question marks. Okay, now the knights are making progress. Because now if the knight checks and the king moves, then the rook is getting to f6. And guess what? Peekaboo, f7 falls. And when Olympus has fallen, then the rest of these pawns are all going to fall. That is probably the big idea. If you are black, you better stop rook d5. If you don't, knight d5, and your king has to go backward, and f6 is lost. So what do? Put one of the rooks on the d file. That's all I can think. Oh, but you know what? Remember, if you put one of the rooks in the d file, then you have to worry about rook b7, and you cannot interpose with your other rooks because your rooks are not talking to each other. And we all know that communication is a big part of relationships. Takes. Then the knight takes, and white's going to win this pretty easily because now this pawn's going to fall either directly or after the move, knight to e5, something like that. Okay, back to our live position. Still 2 games going on. This is Kids versus Stars Edition 3. This is fun. I think we should do this one again. Traditionally, we've done like 4 famous streamers against 4 famous kids, but the nerve, can you tell I've got the nerves? I haven't had coffee in like 3 hours, and his clock is getting so low. He's got 2 minutes in this game. He's got not much more time. If I take a look, he's got 1:58 in the Alice Lee game, and he needs a draw in the Rio game to draw the match, or a win to win the match. Again, we're assuming Alice, with her time advantage, with her clock, with her time clock, with her youth advantage, right? She's only 15, and her big advantage on the board, that she is going to be able to take down Anish. I don't see what black does in this position. So letting the knight get to d5 was the problem. I guess the big idea, what's funny? If you play rook c5, which keeps your rooks together. I know we're not on this game yet, but I'm going to take a look. It was rook c5. I got it on the screen now. Rook c5, stopping knight to d5. Then this rook is overworked. Now the rook gives check. And when you block with one of your rooks, it matters not which one. I can either play knight d5 right away to be, kind of flashy, but it's actually better to trade rooks. And then your rook's not guarding d5 anymore, and 1-0 GG, and Anish would win the simul. So that is the problem. There really is literally no way to stop the knight from getting to d5 and stop the rook from getting to b7 and coming over to f7. I think f7 is falling, and we must have more moves in this game. Yes. Okay, we have king e8. Knight does get to d5, and Ryo, I think, realizes his fate, but he's going to play on. You don't know what's going to happen. We've talked to a couple of the players, and we now know that the players are not actually watching other people's games. So Ryo and Alice, they don't even know the score of the other games. That is one advantage that Anish has. We'll have to work on that for Kids versus Stars 4.0. We might even be like, I don't know, my game ops people might be like, giving DMs to Alice and Ryo, just letting them know the results of the games, right? That's only fair. If Anish knows the results of the games, they have to know too. This is not Kriegspiel. Is that a game? Kriegspiel? Did I say that right? Okay, so pawn to e4. Now this move surprises me because I thought he was just going to go after this pawn. But I guess there's no way, because your knight, if it moves, then the rook's not going to get here. If you move your knight, then black's going to put one of his rooks here and stop your rook from getting to f6. Okay, so, but this is kind of a victory for black. If black can trade off one of his pawns, then that, oh, okay, here's the tactical idea. Very clever by Anish. Normally you would never trade off double pawn, but after takes, he's actually going to take with the knight and leave his other knight en prise. Because if rook takes, he's going to use the f6 square for the knight, win the rook back, up a knight, GG. And if you don't take, well, you have to guard your rook, and you have to stop knight d6. Is that even possible? Knight d6 wins the other rook. This is where the monsters come alive, right? It's alive. These knights are invading. I guess this is your best chance to play rook here. But now, what's the fork? Somebody in chat, help me. Find a fork. Find a win. We know it's there. It's 12 moves deep, but I don't see it. Sorry, searching Bobby Fischer quote. What do we do? What do we do? Where's the win? We just give a check? Like a normal check? Something like that? No. Okay, so we have a resignation. Anish did take my advice about 30 minutes too late and resigned against Alice. That's as immodest as Alice gets, and I mean that in a very sincerely nice way. She's very humble. She's trying. She knows it's a simul. She knows that it's she had a big advantage, and she won, and she played great, and she never let off the gas once she got the extra pawn. So in the final position, she was still up a piece. We don't even really have to show it to you unless we want to, but we've got a game left, right? And this game counts for everything. So we're going to focus on this final game. And it's very simple. The match is tied 1.5 to 1.5. Anish needs to win this game to win the match. If he draws, the match is drawn. Ryo, he knows pressure before. He won the very first 2 editions of the Chess Kid Youth Speed Chess Championship, where you had to play a whole lot of blitz games in a row on camera. Granted, Anish was not his opponent, but he's going for counterplay. He knows his king's in big trouble. He's going to try to double up his rooks, but you know what? If you do that, you might get mated. So if we give white a random move, can I give white a random move? And this rook comes here, and we give check, you need to find safe harbor for your king. And it ain't that square, because we would have a beautiful, beautiful finish to the match. So things like that are happening. Let's go back to the live position. And we are here. 50 seconds left for Anish, 38 seconds for Ryo, 15-second increment for both players. And we got what we wanted. Okay, it was 58% last time we checked. People thought that Anish was going to win. They're still looking good, but he has to convert this. And he's not playing instantly. He is threatening what we call a hook mate. Rook to e8 would have been mate. Before I could draw the arrow on the screen, Ryo, being the speedy player that he is, stops it. And I got to say, he's playing incredible defense. I thought it was just over when the knights were hopping to d5, but he's finding some very good resources here to keep the game going. You know what? I'm looking at rook takes, king takes, and then e6, and you can't take the pawn because of knight takes e6, but you might get yourself in trouble after a move like king to e7, but I'm just trying to do my best Naroditsky here and find you some good moves at the death. And he's dipped below 20 seconds. Let's hope that the crying baby has gone back to sleep. I can't believe he's bleeding his clock down this much. He might be analyzing rook d8. No, he plays knight g8. Anish, that's where black knights belong, not white knights. Okay, I think he's just toggling to gain time on the clock. I think he's going to play knight back. Yep, we should see king e7 insta. Is he going to take the draw? Okay, he only repeated twice. Do we have Judith here, our arbiter? No. Okay, it's not a draw. Everybody knows our live server. Okay, he played my idea, but with the knight on g8, that's even safer because now there is no king e7 hitting the knight. So a better version than what I looked at on my screen. No surprise, he's got 400 rating points on me. And yeah, this looks funny. He actually looks comfortable. He's leaning back, and okay, f6 happened. Remember, he could not have taken because knight takes would be a fork. He also cannot allow the pawn to take, and now the pawn is going downtown. The king is going to move, and then this knight is going to hop. Is this going to be pretty? Is the knight going to go to h7 and then take? And we have a resignation. I believe after a king here, the knight was going to go here. Oh, he could have played normally. He could have played knight takes, king takes, knight check. But I don't know. I kind of like the prettiness of this move, right? The knight's going to take, and the pawn's going to promote, and that would have been a way to win. Anish pulls it out, 2.5 to 1.5, despite his clock situation getting perilous near the end. What an exciting match! Congratulations to Anish Giri, defending the honor of dads everywhere. You can do everything. You can have a family, and you can be a world-class player. What an exciting match. So let's take a look at the results once we get them filled in. That one just came in so. Yeah, congratulations also to Alice, who won her game. So we'll take a look at all the results here. Bottom up on the screen. Alice wins over Anish. Anish was able to pull out that game against Ryo. He was better start to finish against Andy with some fantastic tactics. Shreyas made a comeback. Shreyas was worse. Remember, we talked to him on screen. He was not particularly happy, but he found a very clever way to create counterplay. What to do when you're losing, right? It is a skill in chess, and Shreyas showed us today, but Anish showed his world-class abilities there by staying cool under pressure and winning 2.5 to 1.5. When we come back, we're going to have Anish's thoughts. We're going to ask him if he thinks he had enough time. We're going to ask him about the crying baby, and we're also going to get Alice, the lone winner, for the kids side to come back. So please join us right after this short break where we're going to come back with 2 of the stars of the day. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you very soon for the conclusion of Kids versus Stars. Wow, what a match. Chat did not know who was the favorite, and in fact, it all came down to the end, but Anish pulls it out, showing his world-class ability, 2.5 to 1/2. The clocks were ticking down. Anish, were you getting really as worried as everybody else was with your clocks ticking down on all 4 boards?
Yes, a little bit. I mean, it was going kind of quickly because you realize that time is ticking on the board where you're thinking because you're thinking, so you're used to that. But the clock is also ticking where you are not thinking, which is not something you're used to. So that was a bit of an issue. And I didn't get I didn't see when the move was made. I could have seen it, but I wasn't paying attention where the moves were made, and so I was a bit sloppy. And with Alice, actually, it was a funny thing. I sort of didn't realize which move she made, the last one. So I just I thought I make 2 moves in a row, you know. And then at some point she took on a3, and I'm like, where did that come from? And
yeah, that's what we guessed when she played Bishop F8. We guessed you just didn't even see the idea.
No, but I had the feeling I played a3, Queen D6, and now I go Knight A4. But actually, we already made 2 more moves: Rook C1, Bishop F8, and I was in my head, I didn't realize Bishop is on F8. It moved there, so I just made my move Knight A4, unsuspecting. And then she takes on A3, and I'm like, how is that possible? And I see the bishop is on F8, and I'm like, why is the bishop on F8? But it's because she puts it there, you know? I didn't realize. I never realized she put the bishop on F8. So it was a bit unfortunate, because I'm a big fan of Alice. I'm sure she can beat me also in a game where I don't blunder a pawn. She was already better there. But unfortunately, I blundered, so I'm sorry for that, but at least she got her win, so that's also very good.
Indeed, she was better at that point. Alice, when he just left the pawn on A3, you didn't waste any time in capturing it. Were you at all worried that Anish, being a super GM, there was something you didn't see?
I thought I was surprised, but I saw that there wasn't anything, so I just assumed that he forgot the pawn was hanging. But yeah, but I thought my position regardless was still pretty good. But because even if he doesn't play Knight A4, there's still defending the A3 pawn, you have to play Rook A1 or B4 and A4, and I don't think you want to go back to A1, and neither do you want to play either of the 2 moves. But yeah, I mean once I saw Knight A4, I was but this endgame, it should be quite good for me also because he has the trade queens.
Well, one of the reasons I think this match was fascinating, Anish, I wanted to see if you had posted anything on Twitter about it, and you didn't. And is that because you were maybe a little bit worried about the result of the match beforehand?
No, I just can't keep up with everything. If I would tweet about every single thing that happens, it would be even more tweets, and it's already too many. So that's the issue. But no, I was really, I was very surprised that I beat Andy Woodward today. I thought he's a very mature player, and I didn't expect to beat him in a simul setting. Also, I wasn't even going to try very hard. That was not the plan. So my plan was, because I'm used to handling 3 kids, because that's what I have at home, my plan was to make a draw with Andy Woodward and then handle the other 3. But the problem was that I didn't want to force a draw. I was thinking I'm going to play safe, and Andy didn't quite get out of the opening simply, and I beat him. So that gave me a big head start, so I wasn't too worried about the score. But of course, yes, with Alice, I mean, I'm thinking maybe it would have been nice if when you get the position that the last move is being highlighted to you, you know, that it's you see it being made. Because when you play a game, you see a move made, yeah, always. And now, I think this blunder would have never happened to me, this particular one, because usually if the person goes Bishop F8, you of course see Bishop F8 being, and you see that there's a purpose to the move, yeah. And I sort of saw the position, and I didn't realize the bishop was there, which is a shame. Yeah, I think if I would have noticed it, I would have probably gone back to A1. And my position is quite passive. I missed earlier that after Knight D6, I was intending, of course, to keep the queen somewhere on A4, and then I realized the queen is almost trapped. So I think she has Queen D8 and B5, and my queen is kind of trapped. So I have to give up the bishop pair, and that's why it got kind of unpleasant a bit. I think though, if I'll stay very solid there with rook back to A1, a bishop on F8 itself is also not amazingly placed, but I guess, yeah, black will, because I can never really go for B4 because Knight B6 is coming. maybe that's why black can try to then push on the king side. So I guess black is already practically better there. And I think Alice played very well early on with 94, 96, and queen b4, queen d6 was also interesting because I thought at first that she gives me extra time with b4, but she regroutes the queen very well, and b4 always allows this knight b6, knight c4. So yeah, she did play really, really well. And no, I was worried about the match. Like I was not too worried. I was having some nice idea of what I'm going to do against everyone, and I really liked also my position against Rio. Is his first name? Yeah, Rio. His first name.
Ryo, but yes.
Ryo, yes. Sorry, I've only seen his name in writing. I've never met him before. Ryo, yeah. Now, Ryo is, I've prepared a bit against him as well, and I like this position I got from the opening, but it's just, yes, that's it just went wrong against Alice, and but I was compensated by a gift from Andy, so overall I think kind of a good match for me because I was hoping to win it, of course. And that was my only goal, to just win the match. And I was even wondering what would be like the right strategy. Is it maybe smart to try and make like 3 draws and then isolate one person and have like 5 times more time on the clock than them, you know? But
well, let me jump in and ask you about your kids, because we jumped into your audio right when one of your kids was crying. Did that disturb you at all?
No, it's I hear that somebody has rain there on the background.
Yeah, we jumped in when we weren't talking with you. We exposed your audio and we heard one of your babies crying.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I also hear now that somebody has a rain sound there.
That could be Alice. Yeah, is it raining in Minnesota, Alice?
Oh no, I just have the fan on right next to me.
Okay.
It's the fan. No, but for me, it's also like it's like one of those. I mean, I'm so used to that sound at this point that I don't even hear it. And also, I think my microphone is set on a very high volume, so I have headphones inside, so you might be hearing more noise than I actually hear myself in my room. So I didn't notice any of that. And okay, you gotta deal with it. And I think Botvinnik was training on purpose in complicated situations. Like he would train with the loud radio on. He would even train with like smoke in the room because people were smoking back then. He hated smoke, but he wanted to get used to this. So for me, it's the same. I'm used to tough conditions.
Okay, well, we gave you tough conditions today. 4 superstars that are on their way up. Congratulations, Alice, for the lone victory. But Anish, congratulations to you, because the goal was to win the match. You did exactly that. I will just close by saying, Alice, you were the only one of the 4 competitors who thought that maybe Anish wasn't the best Twitterer. You said Carissa Yip was a pretty good Twitterer. I don't know if she's going to post about this, but I want to give credit where credit is due. And I will not wear the Chess Kid hat. I will wear the Chess.com hat because Anish has won this match. So we'll call it a day. Anish, 2.5 to 1.5. I had a lot of fun with this one, and that ends Kids versus Stars Edition 3. I want to thank Anish. It's not easy to jump in against the kids. There's almost nothing to be gained, and he was so awesome in this process. And Alice, we go way back. Congratulations to you. So that's it. That's all. Anish wins Kids versus Stars. The older generation, not old, but older, takes it. We'll call it a day. Goodbye for now, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
All right,